we're going to get right into what Sheila mentioned, which was the head of the Debates Commission testifying today about his, I love your tweet here, or your post, I should say, on X, that he testified about his inability, this is Michel Cormier, to prevent workplace harassment directed at independent journalists by the mainstream media. I'm not sure, maybe, Sheila, if we have time here, maybe right off the bat, we should just do a recap of what that looked like back in April. For anybody who might have missed our coverage of the federal leadership debates that happened, do we have a clip of the kind of the chaos that was the press gallery?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, let's let Efra and Olivia dig it up. I was in the room. Look, I'm no shrinking violet, okay? I can handle my own. I'm not someone who's easily triggered by insults or things like that. I was shocked because I couldn't believe that I was standing in a room of adults. It was like when you speak Latin to a demon and they just lost their marbles over and over again. They were yelling at Cian Bexty. They were yelling at Ezra Levant. And we're just minding our own business, trying to work. You know, we're having a little chit chat and a visit. And every time we turned around, they were screaming at us. And I was shocked, literally screaming at us. When we were in the lineup to ask questions because they are lazy and entitled, they didn't think they would have to work to get a question in. I'll give you the tip to our success. There were 2 X's on the floor. I looked and I said, okay, one is obviously the French lineup, one's the English lineup. We'll take half of our journalists, put them on that side, the other half of our journalists, put them on this side. And then if we end up in the wrong language lineup, we just switch, right? That was the secret to our success. But these other journalists were sitting all over the room. They didn't, you know, you could very clearly see the debate was ending. So we sort of stood up and got in line. They were stunned, because they've never had to work for anything in their lives before, and we don't get anything given to us. So they were crying the first night because we got all the questions in. Nobody stopped them from getting in line. And then the second night, they just exploded at us. They were screaming at us. And then so Michel Cormier, the debates commissioner, instead of dealing with the bad actors, ensuring a safe workplace free of harassment, which was what was happening to us, because that's a federally regulated workplace, not only by virtue of being the workplace of the Debates Commission, but also it was in the CBC building. So we've got 2 layers of, you need to provide a respectful workplace for us. And the second they accredited us, it should have been that way. So that's why I filed a complaint for workplace harassment with the Debates Commission. Nothing ever came of it, but I thought I would just do it on behalf of our journalists, because I did not like how we were treated. So
yeah, and if you're wondering how we were treated, I was going to lead into
let's show it. Let's show it. And I want everybody to know, the people who were screaming and yelling at us, nothing ever happened to them. Nothing. Instead of dealing with these absolute Yahoo lunatics, they canceled the scrum on the second night. Why? Because this big galoot wouldn't get his butt up off his chair and get in line. He was mad because we did. Anyways, let's listen to what we had to put up with.
What journalistic rationale is there to have this many people in the room? What journalistic rationale is there?
There's not muffin in front of them.
There absolutely are 13 of you. There absolutely are. I saw Cian Bexty coming over to Ezra throughout the debate. Cian Bexty, who supposedly has a different media outlet, was taking direction from Ezra.
You're wrong. Cian Bexty doesn't work for Rebel News.
So why did he come over to you 3 times for direction during the debate? He showed you he showed you his phone, and he took direction from you during this debate.
Goal.
So I don't think that Cian
Probably
Bexty is
a meme if I know Cian.
I don't believe that.
Cian, because we're friends.
We're not allowed to talk to people?
He's shaking. Which is much less than the CBC has. You've got to control your emotions. I know you don't like me or Rebel News, and that's okay.
But what I don't like, Ezra, is you preventing us from being able to ask questions on behalf of the public.
How have I done that?
Get off your big butt!
Before this debate started, you created a security incident. You created a security incident before this debate started.
That guy from the Hill Times?
When you got into a screaming match with people before this debate started, and that's the justification that has been used to cancel the Q&A.
You know what? This is the screaming match. We're getting screamed at.
Because the commission...
You're making that up. You're lying again.
When did the CBC get 4 questions?
Yesterday.
Yes, after they had already told it to you because you threatened to sue.
We go in there thinking like journalists, and many of the
Yeah,
people in there
I
are
wanted to note that the first guy, that first clip, he had like a whole plate and a cup.
Yeah.
They were sitting down, obviously enjoying a full-on meal. No wonder they're not ready to work. They're like just munching away, ready for their.
He's in a diabetic coma by the time the debate rolls around. And like, he won't get off his big butt to get in line. What do you want me to do? Because we're outworking you? We're supposed to slow down. This is not a union shop. We don't slow down so that all the bad workers look good. We work hard. And yeah, we're friendly with Key and Bexy. If I know Key, and he was probably showing Ezra a funny meme. Like, you know what I mean? And we got in a screaming match. Stu Benson and his lady's voice, because he doesn't have enough testosterone, was screaming at the top of his soprano voice at everybody because there were a bunch of us there. We didn't do any screaming. You can actually hear Ezra saying, like, calm down, brother. There's no
Control
need
your
for
emotions.
control your emotions. There's no need for this. And yet, instead of dealing with these obvious security threats, like, these guys should have been thrown out. They violated the code of conduct of that workplace, but instead, they collectively punished all of us, knowing full well when they walked in and canceled the scrum what was going to happen. They were going to pop off at us like it was our fault, and that's exactly what happened. I remember getting word from someone on the inside that the debate was going to be, the scrum was going to be canceled, and I quickly messaged everybody, and I was like, hunker down, get ready, get your cameras ready, because this room is going to explode at us, and that is exactly what happened. And so today, Michel Cormier testifies at the House of Commons about just how difficult it was to do his job. It's a long clip, but towards the end of his opening statement, he says, with regard to the accreditation of journalists, the commission will continue to handle this. Okay. But recommends that it no longer be responsible for organizing the leaders' press conferences that traditionally take place after the debates. So basically, they're saying you can come in the room and watch. Well, I can sit at home and watch without having to sit in a room full of my enemies, but there will be no scrum organized by the Debates Commission. So they're basically washing their hands of this instead of literally doing their jobs.
What's it paid for?
I don't know if we want to show that clip. It's too long. It's 6 minutes. And basically at the end, he says exactly like I just said that word for word. But then when he was questioned by the bloc, he says the post-debate scrum was canceled because he couldn't keep the leaders safe. What? The leaders were fine. It was this racist slurs being shouted at Drea Humphrey from the mainstream media that should have been a problem for this guy, or the fact that a guy in the mainstream media crumpled up a ball of paper and threw it at me in a federally regulated workplace. Anyways, let's listen to this. Oh, do we not have audio? Maybe not.
More about the recommendation that the commission no longer organize press conferences. I'm wondering, is that not directly part of the mandate of the commission?
You think?
Organizing those press conferences. It's the public interest. Press conferences are just as important as what happens at the debate. It goes more in depth. If the commission doesn't organize them, is there not a risk that they would be held at the same time, that smaller media outlets wouldn't be able to send journalists to different places if they're not done in an organized single location? Is that really in the public interest to abdicate your responsibility in organizing press conferences? Well, it's not part of the mandate of the commission. We agreed to organize that to ensure that it was done. The problem is that we're not sure we can guarantee sufficiently calm treatment of party leaders. So that is why we talked about these problems with experts, journalist associations, with political parties, and so we've come to the conclusion that the best way to ensure things don't go badly is that we wouldn't organize those press conferences.
He doesn't even understand the problem.
In that sense, journalists can talk to party leaders every day. Those who follow the leaders.
We can't. But we can't talk to them every day.
So it's that mode that would take precedence after the debate. It doesn't mean there won't be any, but it wouldn't be the commission responsible for them.
He doesn't even understand the issue. The issue is not about keeping the leader safe. There were cops crawling all over that place, private security all over the place. Nobody was threatening the leaders. People were threatening us in the room. And it was his job to get a handle on that. And instead of saying, like, yeah, we need to do a better job of making sure that independent journalists aren't in danger inside of our building, instead he's like, we're not going to do this anymore. And they can talk to the leaders outside of the debate. Well, we want to ask them about what they said during the debate. And some of us aren't allowed at campaign events.
It's just, in my view, another way where they need to clamp down on the ability to control the narrative. And obviously having independent, free-minded media who's not the lapdogs of the government, paid out by them, that is going to unravel any narrative that the government, the Liberal government, is trying to maintain and have a stranglehold on. And the Debates Commission is obviously just lock and key in on that and cannot dissuade the public by showing questions from independent media. I mean, this is how scared they are of tough questions and unplanned questions, that they have to just cancel it altogether. I think if Canadians were unsure of how controlled and censorious the government and these institutions and entities are, this is just another piece of evidence in the puzzle that they aren't working for you. They're working to control a narrative.
I know it's not on the list, but I just want to get to what Andrew Lawton pointed out. So there are two big clips from Andrew Lawton. I'm not going to show them both. You can see them on my X, and we're going to publish them on YouTube as a compilation. Andrew Lawton at one point asks, and Andrew Lawton is a former journalist. He's sued the Debates Commission along with us to get access to the post-debate scrums. And he asks at one point, Michel Cormier, what exactly, these are the words, what exactly is it that you do around here? Because we're not in election mode. You make $160,000 to $190,000 a year. He says it's a part-time job. He might do 2 meetings a week. That's it. And so he's like, what do you do? Like, what is it that you do to justify your own existence? And he's like, basically, well, that's an HR issue. Well, I suppose, but you know, like, your one job is to handle the debates, and you effed that up, and we pay you darn good money for that. So could you do something? But Andrew then went into, you tried to censor independent journalists twice by keeping them out. And then when you couldn't do that the last time, you censored them by canceling the debates or the debate scrums. And I mean, his excuses were so laughable that Andrew quite literally started laughing. So let's watch this.
There obviously, just for the sake of the committee, I've as a journalist, before I became a member of Parliament, I had to engage with the Leaders Debates Commission. You were very gracious in testifying in the lawsuit on press freedom, Lawton versus Canada, in which True North and subsequently Rebel News as well were granted authorization to accredit. But the instinct of the Leaders Debates Commission in the 2019 election was to draw a line and not permit independent media from attending the debate and attending scrums where there was the opportunity to pose questions to leaders. In the 2021 election, there was a bit of a different approach. Some independent media, myself included, were accredited. Some were not. The Leaders Debates Commission once again went to court and was unsuccessful. And then in 2025, there was a broader accreditation, but in the end, scrums were abruptly canceled, thus denying independent media the opportunity to ask questions of party leaders. So why is it that in every single election, there has been a desire by the Leaders Debates Commission to prevent certain journalists from accessing the proceedings and asking questions of leaders of parties in this country?
Well, if we go back to 2019, the media that we thought did not deserve accreditation were media that we did not believe adhered to professional standards and had demonstrated that they were more advocates than actually journalists. Same thing in 2021. Now we lost the cases in court because the court told us that the commission does not have the authority to decide that. And since there is no legal definition of journalism, the court is not in a position to actually solve that question. So we lost those two cases. We took stock of that, and for 2025, we decided to widen the definition of what the media organization is. If you produce content on Canadian affairs, you're in. So that's on that basis that we actually admitted the media.
But anyone can watch the debate on YouTube or on television. The critical difference between being accredited as a journalist by the Leaders Debates Commission and not is access to the scrums. Now, I understand you're moving away from scrums in the future, but that is precisely the point here, where there was an opportunity to say Canadians deserve access to political leaders, and at every single election, the commission has put a barrier where only certain journalists, namely, elite parliamentary press gallery journalists, would meet the criteria of what you constitute as a journalist. And when everyone was allowed in, you canceled the scrums altogether. How is that keeping with transparency?
We accredited 60 different media organizations this time, and a wide variety of new media.
Canceled the scrums.
Yes, because we could not guarantee a proper environment for press conferences.
You didn't even try.
I was in that press room before during the debates, and there was too much tension, too much argument.
On behalf of
that's the last thing I would like. I wanted to do is to cancel the scrums. I believe in accountability and access to leaders, but it has become too disruptive for the public interest of the commission and of the debates, and I'm truly sad about that. But that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with Andrew on that.
Mr. D'Entremont,
it's too disruptive for the mainstream media. That's who it's too disruptive.
He said it was too tense and disruptive. So did you do literally anything to deal with the disruptors? The answer is no. If those guys were in a bar acting like that, they would have been thrown out by a bouncer. Why didn't you get them out of a professional workplace setting so that everybody could work in safety? Didn't do a thing. Literally didn't do a thing. Just said, well, the scrum is canceled. Stu Benson should have been thrown out on his weepy little ass. That big galoot, I forget who he works for, he should have grabbed his muffin and hit the bricks. But they didn't do anything. Nothing. They just said, oh, we're canceling it because we can't ensure safety. Did you do anything to get the disruptors out? Literally nothing. What a loser of a man Michel Cormier is. He never... I wrote, because they asked for consultation on this final hearing or his final report. And man alive, did I light that guy up with a scathing opportunity for input on behalf of the Independent Press Gallery and their failure to do their jobs. And basically he's like, I'm sorry. It makes me sad. Well, sorry, you know what? It makes me angry because that guy makes $190,000 a year to do nothing. All he had to do was say, security, get that guy out of here. And we all would have been able to work. But he didn't do any of that.
Yeah, or, even remind everyone about decorum and that they actually have equal opportunity to get up in front of a microphone instead of having everything handed to them on a silver platter and fed into their mouths with a silver, like they're doing, gluttonously feasting on whatever snacks and treats are provided with their plates and cups, just neatly finished off my lunch or my dinner here at the Debates Commission, and now I'm full after my turkey dinner and can't move and get up to the microphone to ask my questions.
Guy needs some too much on the tryptophan. Like, it's just about the turkey chemicals in him. Like, it's just like, he can't even get up to. This is the part that really irks me, is if you're going to yell at somebody, get to your feet. You know, it shows that you're serious. It commands a little bit of authority, but he couldn't even get to his feet on this. Like, get up on your hooves, buddy. But he's just sitting there screaming at people, yelling at people, telling them that you saw Cian Bexte show him something funny on his phone.
How dare you interact and not actually be working with each other? I mean, it's just, you know, these are the people that frame us as conspiracy theorists. But I would say this guy's comments sound pretty conspiracy minded to me. Like, thinking that there's some great conspiracy with communication, or I don't even know where this guy
We're all friends. We're all friends.
Yeah, we worked together.
Yeah, like, we worked with Cian at the UCP AGM. I was in the Western Standard Hospitality Suite, eating all their snacks and drinking all their booze. The next night,
they did making it up to the microphone.
Yeah, and then the next night, they were over in our hospitality suite doing the same thing. And the next day, at like in between, we were at the press conference, lined up together to ask the premier questions. That's what happens when you're fully functioning adults. You know, when a rising tide, I think, on the conservative side floats all boats, right? Like, there's enough of us out there that there's enough stories for us to cover every single day with unique angles. Why wouldn't we just get along? Yeah, of course, I've got healthy competition with those guys at Blacklocks. Man, I've been writing like crazy this morning. But that healthy competition makes us all better. Like, it's just these, like, imagine Ezra just standing there talking, and these people are just on him like locusts, and then calling Ezra the disruption. If they didn't think that Ezra was interesting, they probably could have just sat down.
Right. But they probably could have just withered away. But instead, here they are. And these are, again, and also conspiracy theories aside, and this guy sounding pretty conspiratorial, these are the people who parrot DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look at the way that they are behaving when, God forbid, there is a diversity of thought or idea happening behind the scenes and about to be questioned, of our political leaders, of the people that the country is supposed to elect to lead them.
Yeah. And
not diversity in any mind. This is censorship and then shutting down the debate for everyone because you're scared of a few critical thinkers.
I think they didn't want us to see how lazy they are. I had a good impression, like I had a good idea of how lazy they are going into this, but I don't think they wanted us to see it because we would tell everybody at home just how lazy they are. But also they didn't want to
over and over again.
Over and over again. I show what a bunch of screamy, harpy, oversoyed, under testosterone lunatics these people are, but also that nobody cares about the questions they ask. Whose question lit up that night? I guess I would suspect it's Drea Humphrey, you know, because she asked something none of those losers in that room would have asked. Not a single person would ever have asked that question. And I think that's the point. If you kick us out, then there's no standard by which to compare their bad journalism to. And as long as we were there was a standard to be for them to be compared to.